All right, good afternoon, folks. Chris, the principal, here for another episode of The Principal. I am indeed a principal of a private school in New Jersey, and I do this show to give relevant commentary on cultural and social and sometimes political elements that we see throughout the world. But I am not very much a political show or commentator because I really think that education and what's going on the day to day in our society is more important. So I thought that today I would do a movie review. It's going to be a little bit more casual in how I do things. I'm just going to share thoughts and it will be a spoiler free review. So this movie review is on the movie Nefarious, and here's the poster. It is a limited viewership movie, which means you have to go on Fandango to search up any nearby show times. And please support this movie. This is one of the best independent movies I have seen in a very long time. It is much more intelligent than most of the Hollywood movies that are out. It is much more thought provoking, excellent acting, excellent scripts. This is hopefully a turnaround in terms of the movie business, which has been at absolute rock bottom. It was hilarious because the previews and Sweet Harmony, one of our members, watched it with her husband, and she said the previews proved one of the points of this movie, which is to show, as it says in the title, a very twisted demonic culture that is just fruity and superficial. There were such ridiculous movie trailers leading up to this one. It was pretty funny. So, Sweet, if you're here, I completely agree. And another reason why you have to watch it is just for the fact that we need to support true creativity in the arts. It's very important to protect the culture, to build up good things instead of ugly, selfish ideas in our world. So that's just a little intro as to what this movie is and where you can find it. Again, I'm going to try to not say what specifically goes on, but the general premise, which you can see from the trailer, if you look up the trailer, is that there is a serial killer who claims he's possessed by the devil, and there is a non believing psychologist or psychiatrist that is there to see if he's actually insane, if he can be acquitted from the death penalty. Unfortunately for the psychiatrist, he's biting off a lot more than he can chew because this is a possession movie. It's not, however, the kind of possession movie you may be expecting if you're coming from the background of The Exorcist or any movie like that. And that's why I'm finding this movie to possibly be my favorite possession movie. And the first reason is because this movie, I think, captures the true horror of the demonic much better than The Exorcist, which is also a great movie. And I think The Exorcist Part 3 is much better. If you're looking for another um, great horror movie, if you're into that kind of thing, The Exorcist 3 is excellent, as well as Dominion, the prequel to The Exorcist, another excellent movie. And those two also go into a good view of how scary the demonic is in a theologically and philosophically accurate sense. This movie, like those other two movies, was definitely written by Orthodox Catholics and Protestants. Priests were on the advisory board. The relevant, accurate material that you need to know to write an accurate movie was being respected because the writer himself is a believer, and he didn't want to write this movie just to make another great Exorcist movie, but rather to really bring out something much more deep about the reality of the demonic. He said that he was inspired from the Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis. I've read a bit of the Screw Tape Letters. I haven't finished the book, but the each chapter of the Screw Tape Letters has its own lesson. And the Screw Tape Letters is another example of the true horror of the demonic. Even though it isn't written in a horror fashion, it shows what truly makes demons scary. So what am I talking about? Why do you keep talking about there's a true horror? Aren't they already scary enough? Well, my first point is that most of the depictions of the devil are really more along the lines of the horror you would get from, a serial killer or an alien sci-fi monster or, maybe, a grizzly bear attacking, which means it's a very surface level danger. It's kind of immature the way they present the devil in a lot of these because they're just there to physically harm you, right? They have superpowers and they can really hurt you if you get close, and they're manipulative and they might be, they're like these psychopaths that just want to destroy you. Now, of course, there's an element of truth to that, but really, when you think about it, how does that really differentiate a demon from, any other horror monster? That's always been my problem with these other movies. It just really didn't resonate completely with me. It didn't resonate with the reality of it. So that's not really what makes a demon scary. And I think that's a big problem. That's the first big problem I think this movie wants to uncover. Our conception of evil is very superficial. Excuse me, I just need to turn my light there. If you think evil is just a dictator or a bully, you are looking at it from just one angle. But what about an evil that makes you think evil is good or is so intelligent it ruins your life without you even knowing? What about an evil that wants to spiritually corrupt you and change you to the point where you don't even realize there's blood on your hands? That is what this movie tries to show. And that's what really annoys me. There are other depictions of human serial killers. So, for example, Hannibal Lecter in both the TV show and the movies. And then the equivalent is an anime called Monster. It's very similar with this character Johann Lieber. There's other villains we see in the history books, right? And that aren't dictators. They're more like scam artists. They're great liars and manipulators. These are much greater depictions of the horror of the demonic than I would say some of these other depictions, because that's a lot scarier, right? It's scarier to have this unknown entity who could be sneaking things in and making you like him. Isn't that the worst of all? And I think that captures the essence of what demons want to do. And so that's I say one aspect of horror that these movies miss. And there's a passage that shows this, right? A passage in the Bible which says, from Matthew 10:28, and fear not them that kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him that is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. So Jesus actually has a great point. He's God after all. He knows better. But it also is kind of common sense. Like anything, a whole bunch of things could be physically painful. But imagine something that can turn you into a monster yourself, a selfish, cold, messed up person. Wouldn't that be more of what the devil would want to do? Because another problem with other exorcist and supernatural horror movies, and some of these are really goofy. Like there's these amateur horror clips, like the haunted house and the spooky ghost clips, the ghost hunters, right? And that's just a great example of like the collective unconscious of of what the supernatural really is, right? The paranormal. Oh my gosh, there's things moving in the psychiatric ward that's haunted, and there's this one ridiculous one where there's like a ghost possessing a woman, and she picks up the other chick, and she's climbing like Spider-Man on the wall and throws the chick. It's like terrible CGI, but those are great representations of how silly we kind of look at this. It's very skin deep. It's like, okay, this is just like a super villain or something, right? Um, and if we take that into account, then we really might be falling into, and this is something that the the demon in this movie, he kind of red pills the audience. Unbelief or thinking it's not a big deal or thinking that it's rare could blind you to the true reality. Another example would be, the new age psychedelic understanding of spirituality, which is kind of like everywhere on YouTube, which is, oh, I take a drug and I experience something, or I meditate and I'm looking for a supernatural experience, right? But there's a logical problem with that. First of all, these things have a lot to do with the senses, even if they're supernatural. Why do you assume that the supernatural is always about the senses? Now, it could be, but what about things beyond the senses? What about things that are deeper than the senses? What about your mind? What about right and wrong? What about decision making and your own perspective on what path to take in life and what is good and what is bad, and how people can twist that around and send you for a loop? What about that? What about an evil ideology? Well, that's actually what this movie shows. That's where the operation really is happening. Perhaps a lot of the supernatural, chasing all of the supernatural, is a distraction. I mean, think about it. A possession can't really send someone to hell. If you know a lot about possession and how the soul isn't gone, it's just the demon kind of forces the person. This is according to Exorcist, and I think the other Exorcist movies get this right. But it forces the person to do something bad against their own will, or it's like, there's something in you and you just can't help it, and it's right. But if that person resists and seeks help, that isn't on them, actually. In fact, many exorcists say, including Father Ripperger, I think he's the most popular, that going through something like that can make you holier. Resisting the devil at such a, I'm not suggesting go get possessed to become a saint, but it is possible. It is possible for that to happen. The Case of Emily Rose is a movie that came out, which was another, I'd say, very faithful, reverent depiction of this. So how is that really scary? Is that really, if that was the case, why isn't the devil so interested in possessing people? So it flips the script on that. And as you watch, you realize, oh boy, demons actually don't want to operate on that level. They are operating on a much worse level. They're operating on the Adolf Hitler level, the Joseph Stalin level, the Saul Alinsky level, the Clinton level. They're operating on the level that seduces the culture, the level where you see the Roman Empire collapse and from the inside out as people become more decadent, the level that makes parents abuse children and children rebel against parents, the level where everyone seems to be really indifferent and mean and angry and not very charitable. You don't hear "I'm sorry" or "I forgive you" much anymore. You don't really hear about people using their free will to do what's right. It just seems like everything is about doing what indulges themselves, right? Has anyone ever noticed that? Like, there's like a monopoly of narcissism and selfishness in what is considered the ultimate concern, right? Like, when you listen to people, it's very little about helping others. And when it is about helping others, it seems to always be about making yourself look good, getting likes and views, right? Oh, look what I'm doing. I'm such a good person. So it still feeds into a kind of narcissism. Well, the demon also shows this. The true essence of the demonic is pride, right? Lucifer, the fallen angel. Why have we lost this in our culture? I always bring it up on these shows. This isn't the first time I do it. I bring it up a lot of the times, but this movie I'm so happy with because it finally red pills people on the devil and how the spirit world works. The spirit world does not work in like the haunted fill in the blank that you hear about once in a while and it's very rare. It's right in front of us. That's the difference between the good theology and what people think it really is, which is kind of like an assumption, the superstition, right? Um, and that's what the church teaches. That's what the Catholic Church teaches, the Orthodox Church teaches, good Protestants teach. It's right there in front of you because angels and spirits, if you're going to go by the Catholic lore, right, where all this came from, they are intellectual beings. They don't have bodies and they operate on the intellect. That was always understood. So their essence involves what captivates you in the intellect, what captivates you, what is center in your life? What do you adore? What are your desires? And that is the make or break between connecting with God or connecting with sin or connecting with the devil, right? That's how you really ordinarily connect with God. So if there's anything I want to add to this movie is that if selfishness and sin is what the devil wants us to connect to give him power, and if that's what the demons are like, because that's their essence, right? Their essence is now rebellion. They are tainted because they chose against God, and now they're like stuck in this endless super narcissism. Then consider the fact that maybe a lot of us can't connect to God because God is love, and we're not interested in the things of God. We're not interested in being truly humble. We're not interested in forgiving others. We're not interested in seeking the truth and being a light to others and also standing up for the truth, right? And so I have two images here, which I don't want to forget to use. And I have a cute little sheepy here. And I have to say this, guys. I know that this word has been used, but the movie definitely shows that one of the big tools that the devil uses to get people to become prideful in this culture. See, the movie is about possessing a culture. I don't want to give it away too much, but the demon is actually a good supervillain in the sense that, and this is very realistic, he's got a plan. He's not there to just possess someone. He wants to do something more. And just like how God has to use little birdseed to get us to come closer, the demons use lesser sins to sneak us into pride so that we become like them. And the number one sin, this is just my opinion, okay? There's other sins. But I think one of the most underlying sins underneath the other sins in our culture, which makes people messed up, I'm talking about the ordinary person, not talking about the psychopath, is sloth. Sloth is a laziness of the spirit. Sloth is, I'm not interested, it's too hard, I'm going to take the easy route. And that's why you have the phenomena of the sheeple, or what many people now call the NPC. The NPC, the good little boy or girl who just does what all of their friends are doing, and that's what everyone thinks, mom and dad. And I learned that from my professor. Right now, I didn't look into the actual study that the professor did, and I don't bother to peer review it and respect my own intelligence. But I just want to get along. I want a good job. I just want to be under the radar. I want to be cool. I don't know how you can be cool by agreeing with everyone else. But anyway, that is what he shows, because one of the things about the psychiatrist is, I guess is a little bit of a spoiler, but they show that his disbelief isn't very genuine. It's part of the elite academic. It seems like he there's a point where it shows that although he is smart, he has a superficial liberal stance. You see, I respect someone who's like not falling into these boxes. Are you a box person? Let's make a list of all the things that we believe in. How many of these things are affected by, oh, that's what everyone else is doing, that's how I was raised, perhaps, or maybe I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to lose my prospects for the future. Um, or maybe you are selfish and you're like, come on, life couldn't be that hard, could it? I mean, everything's going to fall into place. I'm an entitled American, and I have to have my cake and eat it too, and I have to have everything fall into place so easy. Row, row your boat. Life is but a dream, and I just don't want to work very hard at discerning things in life, right? That's where the demon wants you to be. So there's a fourth wall break. There's a fourth wall break that red pills the audience. I really wonder what the people in the back were thinking. I was sitting in the middle. There were a few people in the back when they heard the demon actually spit some truth, which is pretty cool. So are you really a good person or are your values very solid if it's just based off of what other people think, or if you're being lazy? Dr. Jordan Peterson put out a video which talks about, and this is all verifiable, the person who started the transgender movement, or the theory behind it. I always wondered where that came from. You might want to check that out. But maybe if you use your critical thinking a little bit and stop worshiping experts or being lazy, you would have felt pretty off about it anyway. But maybe that'll help, because it is nasty. It's not for the faint of heart. And another thing that I liked about this movie, chess is a great analogy for certain things in life when it comes to war, right? When it comes to war, there isn't just physical war, there is spiritual and psychological war. And this movie shows that all it takes is for the pawn to reach the end of the board. And a lie enthroned in power can destroy. All you need is one bad idea, or maybe one bad person. You don't even need a person. You could just have an idea. An idea can destroy a society. It can destroy lives. It can destroy souls. And are we underestimating the power of ideas? I mean, think about it. If everyone believes in a lie that is connected to serious decision making, do you really need an army to kill people? And we may not take this that seriously. We may think, oh, come on, really? Like, don't we have a stable modern society? Well, one problem with that is maybe you don't believe in the reality of the soul, which is very strange. Again, I'm more impressed with like an agnostic theist, right, who's trying to earnestly look for the truth. Like, or maybe even a conservative atheist. At least there's some variety there. At least there's some wheels turning. But can we just question a little bit as to why we're so unconcerned with this possibility? Why are we so unconcerned with Pascal's wager? I mean, if hell exists, it's not a good turnout. If you really don't believe, that's fine, I guess. Some people earnestly don't believe. I do believe that. They have things to work out. They're still working it out. But I mean, if the Christians are right, why are we so willing to risk them being right? Right? um, I don't know. Hell just doesn't sound very nice. And the more things get worse around here and the more people become immoral, I'm seeing people notice, yeah, there is something called evil. I don't believe in God yet. There's a lot of those people now. I've seen Jewish, Dennis Prager on Jordan Peterson. He's Jewish. They don't believe in the devil the way that Christians do. And he said he believes in evil now. I see atheists throughout comment sections believe in evil. They're getting so disturbed. So why are we not at least a little bit humble and wondering about that, right? But I think this is the final horror. You look at history, you look at the Russian Revolution, you look at North Korea, you look at Rome, you look at like the Salem witch trials, you look at mass hysteria, you look at cult leaders, you look at particular religions, which I won't name names of here, that seem to have a lot to do with dominating others and political power. You look at the Pharaoh of Egypt who could strike away whatever he wanted from the history books. Are you so sure? Are you so sure that everything set up in your life by those around you is kosher? Are you so sure that it's something that is truly good? Let's humble ourselves with this whole gullible Western democracy, la la land, naive, everyone's good thing. Let's look at history and watch the movie to open you up to it. Think on your own. I would bring like a notebook or maybe write notes afterwards. I know I had to for this review. And open yourself up to introspection. You may find it to be life-giving. You may find that, boy, I was pretty miserable thinking that I'm always right or thinking my friends was already right. This isn't even fun. This is actually pretty boring. Maybe you need a little adventure and excitement. Maybe you need to challenge yourself. Maybe a lot of the misery is from that. Just saying. A lot of people are interested in mental health. Well, maybe that's a big part of gaining some mental health is to get in touch with your critical thinking, with humility, with some higher values other than what you want to do, things that transcend even what the media tells you, and really seeking what's right. Maybe you'll feel something, and maybe you'll get in touch with God. But like the demon shows in the movie, they laugh at humans. They think sin is ridiculous because they're much smarter than humans. But at the same time, there's a side of us that's similar because the demons in their pride rejected God to their own detriment. They made up their own reality and theories about God and what God was trying to do. And, they wanted their own agency just to feel like they were better or to feel like they were, gods themselves. And they're very miserable because of it. So the demon accidentally spills that if that's how we are, what about you? How much of that is in us? So it's just food for thought. Anyway, that's my review. I'll check out Q&A, and I'm going to head out. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hey, Adam. Hey, Stardust. Yes, please pass on the word. It needs to be supported, and I will keep looking out. I'm always looking out for good entertainment that has some good messages in it. It is a very entertaining movie. I'll give you that. It does not. It's not like a cheesy. I mean, okay, I'm not bashing Christian movies too much here, but some of them are cheesy. Okay, it is meant for everyone, and it is meant to also entertain. It does not miss out on that factor. And that's another thing. I'm sorry. One more thing. We need to get over, us Christians, this religious pride where we act overly Christian about everything, because art can transcend bias. That's why art works. Art, and Thomas, if you're listening, Thomas is a musician. I believe that art and music can plant seeds through the extra verbal form of it, right? Like if you touch someone's heart with a piece of art, that can open them later to the ideology or the morality or whatever point you're making, because you're striking a chord that is beneath the mental blocks of that's already programmed, right? So that's something I learned here. With patience, you could plant seeds for someone to start believing in God or to get their act together and stop this woke garbage by resonating with that part of them that they still are in touch with, that hasn't been programmed out of them yet. And that's why this transgender thing is very ugly, because it's actually trying to completely reprogram people. Fortunately, it's not that strong. Stardust, I left a message to you about that on Telegram. Maybe that's in time for another talk. But I'm not completely convinced of how powerful the transgender movement is on its own. So, but it is very ugly. So that's another thing I learned about that. It is a good piece of entertainment and art. Anyway, I've babbled on enough. See you later, guys, and have a wonderful rest of the Saturday.